Have you ever imagined what South Africa would be like if every young person in our communities was trained from an early age to lead with courage, wisdom, and justice? Not with empty speeches, but with firm actions, a clear mind, and a heart centered on the common good. What if I told you that an ancient philosophy, born more than 2,000 years ago, could be the key to forming the leaders that this country so desperately needs? While many continue to look for answers in ready-made formulas or passing fads, a silent and powerful truth is being rediscovered by leaders around the world: Stoicism. The principles of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus are not just pretty ideas written on paper. They are mental weapons to weather crises, make difficult decisions, and lead with dignity. Exactly what our schools, communities, and governments need most right now. In this video, you will discover how these principles can be applied in a practical and profound way to transform not only your way of thinking, but also the future of an entire nation. And in the end, you will understand why true power is not in the position, nor in the status, but in the mind of those who lead. If you want to be part of this change, press play and sign up now, because the future of a nation can start with a single idea, and maybe that idea is here. Lesson 1. Self-discipline as the foundation of Stoic leadership. In South Africa, where many leaders face constant challenges such as inequality, unemployment, and political instability, self-discipline is one of the most urgent and least visible virtues. It's easy to get lost in the chaos, react on impulse, or let emotions drive important decisions. But it is precisely in these moments that Stoic philosophy offers a powerful key: self-mastery. The Stoics believed that a human being's true power begins with internal control. For a leader, this means acting with constancy, firmness, and purpose, even when everything around seems to be falling apart. Imagine a community manager in a disadvantaged neighborhood in Johannesburg. He deals daily with requests for help, scarcity of resources, political pressure, and often distrust from the people he intends to serve. If he lacks self-discipline, he will be swallowed up by emotions such as anger, frustration, or fear. But if he cultivates this inner strength, he can stay focused on real solutions, make thoughtful decisions, and inspire confidence in those who observe him. Self-discipline is not rigidity, it's freedom. It is the freedom of not being enslaved by your own reactions. It's the ability to get up early when you're tired, listen to criticism without getting upset, and make unpopular decisions when they are right. A Stoic leader understands that each choice reflects who he or she is becoming, and even when no one is watching, he does the right thing. This posture inspires. Young people watch, colleagues learn, communities feel, because self-discipline is contagious. It shows that it is possible to resist the temptations of the ego, the shortcuts of easy power, silent corruption. Leaders who cultivate this virtue silently build something lasting. They become living examples of what it means to lead with character, not appearance. In the South African context, where the wounds of the past still mark the present, this firm and balanced leadership is a breath of hope. She doesn't scream, but she transforms. She does not impose herself, but conquers. She doesn't promise, but she delivers. Stoic self-discipline, when embodied by a leader, becomes the foundation of something much greater, a culture of responsibility, integrity, and mutual respect. And in the end, this is the type of leadership that remains, even when positions are gone, because it was built from the inside out. Second, moral courage in an environment of injustice. Imagine leading in a place where inequality still screams, where many still face the consequences of the past daily, and where it is not always easy to do the right thing without paying a high price. In South Africa, this is a reality. But it is exactly in this type of scenario that courage taught by Stoic philosophy becomes indispensable. Stoic courage is not noise, it is not anger, nor is it impulsiveness. It's that silent strength that sustains a leader even when everything around them seems to be falling apart. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote that we should do what is right even if no one sees it, even if no one applauds it, even if it hurts. This kind of courage is rare, but it is what turns leaders into symbols. A courageous leader is one who continues to stand up for what is fair even when he is alone. He is someone who does not surrender to corruption just because it is common. That does not remain silent in the face of exclusion just because it is convenient, and who doesn't accept the unfair rules of the game just to keep his place. He knows that an example is stronger than any speech. In practice, this means refusing bribes, even if everyone around them accepts them. It means listening to the voices of forgotten communities, even when it brings more work and no immediate benefits. It means protecting the common good, even when it threatens personal interests or political alliances. Courage, for a Stoic, is not acting without fear. It's acting despite fear. In South Africa, where the challenges often seem immense, courage cannot just be emotional. She needs to be rational, balanced, and firm. The courage that leads does not shout but walks forward when everyone stops. And that courage is contagious. When one person stands up and says no to what is wrong, others are inspired. When a leader shows dignity in the face of injustice, he plants a seed in every gaze that watches him in silence. A seed that over time can grow and transform an entire generation. So if you want to be a true leader, don't wait for applause. Wait for resistance, and be ready to face it with serenity, because it is precisely in times of injustice that Stoic courage reveals its noblest form. It is in this fire that true African leaders are forged. Third, the importance of duty and social responsibility. Imagine a leader who wakes up every day not to be served, but to serve. A leader who understands that his position is not a privilege, but a responsibility. This is exactly what Stoic principles teach about leadership. True power lies in duty and commitment to the common good. And this vision could completely transform the way leadership is exercised in South Africa. In a country marked by historical inequalities, the sense of duty cannot be superficial. Is not enough to hold a position or have influence. Stoic philosophy reminds us that the role of a leader is to take care of what is within his power, not out of vanity, not for prestige, but because it's the right thing to do. For Stoics, serving others is not an option. It is a moral duty, and that requires constant action, even when no one is looking. This principle has enormous power when applied to the South African reality. Think about local leaders who work in communities that lack resources, security, and opportunities. They cannot afford to lead with speeches alone. They need to be present, listen to people, understand their pain, and do what they can to change things. And this begins with a silent but powerful decision to do one's duty every day without expecting immediate rewards. The Stoics taught that we should do what is right simply because it is right. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, wrote in his diary that the fruit of man is the good he does to others. And this applies even more to those who lead. In South Africa, where so many still face enormous challenges to living with dignity, this kind of leadership can be the difference between despair and hope. Taking on social responsibility is not about giving charity. It's about building a better future based on justice, action, and the awareness that no one grows alone. When a leader understands that his mission is to elevate others, he creates a movement. He inspires. It transforms. And this resonates far beyond his time in power. Therefore, Stoic principles are not just distant philosophical ideas. They are practical, urgent, and essential tools to form ethical leaders, firm and deeply committed to their communities. A Stoic leader doesn't ask himself what he can gain from his position. He asks himself, what can I deliver? How can I serve? What needs to be done now, even if it is difficult? And this is the basis of all true leadership: duty, responsibility, and purposeful action. Because at the end of the day, that's what remains, and that's what changes the world. Fourth, Stoic resilience, leading, even in difficult times. In difficult times, the true leader is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who stands firm when everything around seems to fall apart. Resilience, for the Stoics, is not just about enduring pain or hanging in there. It's turning adversity into strength. It's making difficulty a training ground for the soul. This idea is especially powerful in South Africa, where many leaders face daily pressure from historic inequalities, economic crises, violence, and widespread distrust. Imagine a community leader in a marginalized region, trying to keep young people away from crime, facing a lack of resources, government indifference, and social pressure. An ordinary leader might give up. A Stoic leader, on the other hand, knows they can't control everything, but they can control how they respond. Instead of falling into despair, he becomes an example of steadfastness, focus, and quiet service. He doesn't victimize himself. He acts. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and one of the greatest representatives of Stoicism, wrote his thoughts in the midst of wars, betrayals, and internal crises. Even surrounded by chaos, he repeated to himself that all that matters is to act justly, keep a firm mind, and do what you can with excellence. This stance is a model for African leaders who refuse to let the system break them. They choose to resist, not out of pride, but because they know that every little action counts. Every young person saved, every project started, every word of hope planted in a tired mind is an act of resilient leadership. Stoic resilience also teaches that suffering is not the enemy, but the master. Difficulties do not come to destroy, but to reveal who we are. And in leadership, this revelation is fundamental. Leaders who learn to withstand internal storms become unshakable in the face of external ones. They stand out not for their speeches, but for their presence, not by status, but by character. In South Africa, where the pain of the past still echoes in the present, cultivating this resilience is not just desirable, it is necessary. And it is exactly this silent, disciplined, and values-centered force that can form a new generation of leaders. Leaders who don't shy away from the fight, who do not give up in the face of injustice, who don't expect perfection to act. But they move forward day after day, with courage in their hearts and reason in their minds. This is the power of Stoic resilience, not cold armor, but an inner flame that continues to burn, even when everything seems dark. And this flame can illuminate not only the path of those who lead, but of everyone who follows them. You don't need to be an emperor to have this strength. Just decide, today, that difficulties will not be a limit, but an invitation to greatness. Fifth, humility and service, leading without ego. Imagine a leader who doesn't need to shout to be heard, nor put himself above others to be respected. A leader who inspires by silent example, who serves before being served. This is the Stoic ideal of leadership. Act with humility and let character speak louder than any speech. And this form of leadership can transform entire communities in South Africa. In Stoic philosophy, the ego is seen as an obstacle, an internal enemy that needs to be defeated every day. Because true power is not in looking strong, but in actually being strong. Not in controlling others, but in controlling yourself. This requires humility, and humility is not weakness. It's inner strength. It is being aware of your own limits and still serving with courage. In South Africa, where so many leaders emerge, amid profound challenges such as inequality, corruption, and unemployment, Stoicism offers a different path. A leader who practices detachment from ego can listen more than he talks. He connects with people. It does not seek applause, but transformation. He does not govern to maintain his own status, but to improve the lives of those around him. This posture attracts confidence. A humble leader inspires because he shows that it is possible to win without humiliating, grow without stepping on anyone, command without becoming a tyrant. He acts silently when he needs to, but is firm when the moment demands it. He does not allow himself to be carried away by vanities. Don't be fooled by positions or titles, because you know that all this passes. What remains is the impact it had on the lives around it. Being this type of leader requires daily practice. It is an exercise in self-knowledge. It's constantly asking yourself, am I serving others or just my own pride? Am I looking for real solutions or just recognition? Each sincere response shapes character. And over time, this type of leader begins to generate other leaders, young people who are reflected in attitudes and not in empty promises. Stoic humility expects no reward. She acts because it is right, and that's precisely why it transforms. When a leader serves with a clean heart and without vanity, he becomes unforgettable, and he leaves a legacy that no statue or speech can match. This is how a new generation of leaders is formed in South Africa, with less ego, with more service, with the courage to be small in the eyes of the world, but giant in the eyes of those who need it most. And that, in the end, is what really matters. Sixth, practical wisdom, making decisions with clarity and justice. Imagine a leader faced with a crisis. The country's economy in decline, protests in the streets, political promises demanded from all sides. He tries to solve everything at the same time, carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. But there is something that can completely change this reality, the wisdom of accepting what is beyond your control. The Stoics called this inner freedom, and this is one of the most transformative lessons for anyone who wants to lead with clarity, balance, and dignity. In South Africa, many leaders face extreme challenges: historic inequality, social tensions, lack of resources, impossible expectations. It's easy to let yourself be consumed by anxiety when you believe that everything depends solely on you. But Stoic principles teach that there are two types of things: those that are under our control and those that are not. And true strength is knowing the difference. By understanding this, the leader stops wasting energy trying to change what cannot be changed. He learns to focus on what really matters: his choices, his integrity, his way of reacting. It doesn't mean being passive. On the contrary, it means acting with more focus, without getting lost in frustration or blame that doesn't help anything. This attitude reduces stress, improves decision-making, and instills confidence in others. Imagine a young community leader trying to solve the unemployment problem in his village. He has no control over the national economy, but you have control over how to organize courses, create support networks, talk to local companies. This is Stoic leadership in practice. He acts on what he can, accepts what does not depend on him, and in doing so, preserves his mental health, his motivation, and his connection with the community. Accepting what you cannot control is not a sign of weakness. It's the opposite. It's wisdom, it's silent strength. This is what keeps the leader steady when everyone around is panicking. When the storm comes, he doesn't try to stop the rain. He builds shelter. He takes a deep breath. He continues. And what turns a good leader into a wise and lasting leader is not his ability to win everything, but his ability to remain calm, clear-headed and fair, even when things don't go as expected. And that starts with a simple but powerful choice: accepting with serenity what you cannot control. Seventh, the power of example, leading by quiet action. Imagine a generation of young leaders growing up with minds trained to think clearly, act courageously, and serve justly. In a country like South Africa, where many face daily challenges related to poverty, inequality, and lack of opportunities, teaching the principles of Stoicism in schools and communities can be a powerful seed of transformation. Stoicism does not need to be taught as an ancient and distant philosophy. It can be translated into practical lessons, applicable to the daily lives of any young South African. For example, rather than simply talking about the dichotomy of control, teachers and mentors can ask, "What is in your hands today?" This simple reflection already plants the idea of focus and personal responsibility. Instead of feeling like victims of what they cannot change, young people learn to act on what is within their power, their choices, attitudes, efforts, and behavior. In a school, an educator might use local stories of resilient leaders to illustrate Stoic courage. It can show how a young man in a violent community chose to study despite little support, or how someone opened a small business facing fear and scarcity. These stories, when told well, not only capture students' attention, but also inspire them to see themselves as protagonists in their own lives. Another effective path is to transform virtue into a habit. Instead of teaching the theory of the discipline, why not create weekly challenges in which students train constancy? For example, keeping a personal diary with daily reflections, like those of Marco Aurelio, or propose a silent challenge. Spend an hour a day observing the world without talking, just listening. This develops self-awareness and presence. 2. Key elements in forming conscious leaders. In communities, Stoicism can be shared in conversation circles, religious meetings, or cultural centers. Community leaders, religious leaders, and even sports coaches can incorporate Stoic messages into their speeches. Phrases like, "Don't let anger control your actions," or "Do what's right even if no one is watching," already carry the spirit of philosophy. When repeated in familiar contexts and associated with real examples, these ideas become behavioral references. To further strengthen message retention, it is essential to involve emotion. Young people learn more when they feel something. Therefore, bringing stories of overcoming, moments of reflective silence, or empathetic activities, such as listening without interrupting or serving voluntarily, are effective ways of making Stoic principles become part of their identity. True leadership is born when someone understands that their life has purpose, that their mind is their temple, and that their strength lies in how they react to challenges. If this thinking is sown from an early age in schools and communities in South Africa, we will not just be forming good students, but a new generation of silent, firm, fair, and transformative leaders. If you believe that true leadership begins with thinking about and practicing your deepest values, be sure to subscribe to the channel now. Together, we can cultivate a generation of leaders who truly impact their communities with wisdom, courage, and justice. So which Stoic principle do you think could most transform leadership in South Africa? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you think.